Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Billy, and my partner, Maura. We're working for the Greater Auburn Development Corporation. Greater Auburn Development Corporation is a non-for-profit organization that has been operating for years and years to transform people's lives by giving them access to resources in 4 key areas: access to education, housing, health, and opportunity to get economic development. GADC needs to operate more sustainable. However, in the current environment, they have been facing difficulties to align resources to work effectively internally, and a way to communicate in reliable manners to the funders to get more support. They demand more and more qualitative information that can be proven to evaluate success of the organizations. Therefore, we're going to propose the solutions. That is a baseline matrix to evaluate effectiveness across its 4 key focus areas that I've mentioned before.
So how do we even start with a solution to a problem that big, a problem that's very high level and impacting every part of this organization? And so when we first started, we were trying to think, what data is out there? What are they already looking at? And there's very disparate pieces of data being collected by these 4 main areas that you see here. But what we realized is we really needed to take a step back, because they're doing tremendous work, and really their goal is to revitalize their whole entire community. And each piece of this is really feeding into that entire goal. So what we proposed is a 2-part solution to be able to look at this problem. And the first part is being able to tell that story. So we know, and the GADC knows, that they are doing amazing work. But what is that overall goal? And how exactly are these 4 different areas playing into that? And so what we'd like to propose is having a meeting with all of the leadership committee and being able to discuss these. So we started a bit of coming up with not only those goals, but then some of those metrics as well, with some of the information that we did have. So for example, in the education space, really being able to measure over time, what does it look like? How many more children are attending school every day and not dropping out of school? So being able to start there, of really defining what these metrics are before we run out and just collect every piece of data that we can find. So the second piece here is, now that we've really figured out what are those pieces of the organization, and really what are their goals and how are they feeding this overall picture of what the organization is doing, how are we going to get this information? And right now that's collected in many different ways, many different kind of mediums and mechanisms for getting that information. So how can we standardize that and centralize that into one function within the organization? So luckily we have Tanisha here, who's going to be leading this charge back at the GADC. But what we're proposing is a very simple pilot process. So really to get things started, because right now not everyone in the organization is collecting data and really thinking about how important data is for the mission of the organization. So what we'd like to propose is just having one initiative, so each of these parts of the organization, many, many different initiatives, focusing on one initiative in each part, to use a standardized Google form that would be very, very simple to use, to make sure every touch point that they're having with their clients in the community, they're collecting very basic information. So to start, things like the name of the client, so that we can have a unique identifier to see which parts of the services are there people being served in different parts of GADC, and how is that looking exactly. So by starting with this simple form, we'll be able to see how successful was this. Was each part of the organization actually able to use this, and then bring it together into one cohesive story for the organization. And to get at that, what are we going to be able to do afterwards with this information? And so there's really 2 pieces that we're looking at here. The first is actually being able to quantify those strategic goals that we spoke about a couple slides ago. And so really being able to show not just, yes, we served X number of people in our community, but being able to say, over this year, or over 2 years, we're actually able to increase the number of students who are attending school, or whatever those metrics would be in the different organizations. The second piece of analysis, which might be a bit further down the line, but the piece of data that we recognize could be really helpful, is the census data for this area of the community. So being able to look at what are some of those metrics, such as income level, really what are the number of people there, and just get a better sense of the scale of the organization. So are they serving everyone in the community? Are they only serving a very small subset of this age group? And seeing where there may be gaps in the amazing work that they're doing.
At the end of the whole process, we're going to have a dashboard that can align the whole internal team to work together. And that dashboard can help GADC and allow them to make impact in our ways to show causation between the programs and the outcomes of the beneficiaries. And it's not just about how to help other people, but helping right beneficiaries. And that's going to be essentially helped by this process, that we identify population that must be reached either by one or more programs of GADC. And as a non-profit organization, we need sustainable support of the funders in terms of money and resources. And that this dashboard, when it's created, it's going to help GADC to operate sustainably by get more funding after demonstrating that GADC is impacting the community. So thank you very much for